我也当了连那些上班去的，上班上的就都下去，我都看到了上的就都下去，看到了我听说的嘛的，说上的就都下去的了，今天把当吃不多也上不去，你嘛的，吃不多也上不去，我的嘛，吃不多也上不去的了，这没啥子紧张，这没啥子急，啥子急的呢？啥子？사지 집어들래 고드네 당가서 또 고바들 해도 말봐 고발라리 전부 지나온데래 라리 전부 지나와래 다른 가서 어떤 물을 해도 말봐 라리 전부 내자래 내자 베이지나 내자래 인치 지나 가봐도요나 내자래 가자 접어 가지 라망에 반해서 고바데 말봐
니자.
니자 타마타마트레.
니자
타마타마트레. 아자 쳐봐와 가지라 망해바네스.
간사 쳐봐와. 니자 타마. 간사 지제바. Okay. 200 at the end.
가자 쳐봐 고바도 팀바. 이제바들 고드는 고바도 들어.
Jogo. Okay. So we are on page 256 in the English, just as a side note. So when we look at karma and its results in the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, you'll find that there are three major categories: reflecting on karma and its results in general, reflecting on karma and its results in particular or in a detailed way, and how one engages in virtue and abandons non-virtue after reflecting on karma and its results in general and in specifically or in detail. Or cultivating ethical behavior. So we are in that third section of how one then engages in ethical behavior and abandons non-virtue. And in that section of the outline, we find that there are two categories. First, a general presentation, and then a second category, which is called, in particular, the way of purification through the four opponent powers. So that's the section we're dealing with today. In particular, the way of purification through the four opponent powers. When we look at Jayan Sheba's commentary, and we compare it to the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, we'll find that there is the difference in that Lama Tsong-kha-pa presents us with one category for this section, and then Jayan Sheba breaks this down into 8 different categories. And now we're currently in the fourth category, and the fourth category has 9 categories in total. So that's what we're going to go over today. This is again beginning on page 256 in the English text. The Dixon, Gan Lasa.
다니부터 서요군에 자도 제리다 디바가를 또 치면 다 투레스 다만 뭐 붙여서 송아 다니부터 송고 샤나 제바이나 가자 쳐본 가지라 어때 제마지진 다 마투버던 요아레스 가자 쳐봐 가지라 망해바네스 다 가자디 체진데레도와 자부 바유신스 자부 바유신사데게 자부 바유신지 모둔다제 똥발란죄데사 자부 바유신지 모둔다제 똥발란죄데 최den시네 최바신도 자체신 자체와 셰신 니마 니르라 튜송도 데바샤바 로동자셔와 공아시데사 취양다바 송장 츠베네 남에도 제바당 개바셔와 kaba shawa tata reni so mi jawa so dunge taiba nyuwa tinga zi jabulu son sos tinga zi jabulu son so tenyang te dra yin shaba teme du manju te masha na te yu jang chawa tang yun rinwa yun rin dunge nyugu bishiro so wata guba tere teba tere duwa 다 잡아 봐야 신사죠 말 잡아 봐야 신사 다 코노게 제면 모든 다제 시여 말 모든 다제 좀 봐야죠 세 봐야죠 아 잡아 봐야 신제 모든 다제 좀 모든 다제 코노 제면 세 봐야죠
So the metu dazin kon jemen.
모든 다제 코노 제면
Okay, to Chena.
와이비 내면
Lesso.
모든 다제 좀다 모든 다제 좀 사도 콜 줘봐 쳐보 용이죠
Juba sena.
Jobasan tantric masonyabe joba de yongoro
Okay, decent.
joba ngasu karsa naba sanjiba kun shebe to marbe
Lesso.
joba ron joba
Lesso.
wote naba sanjiba kun tan nebu to jig non tambutro ana ko de jemen se sadu kol dal joba yongo jirwa naba sanjiba kun shebe to yongo jirwa jode sa ana chöden shene chöden tuzo 네 초바 신도 자체와 she신 최대한 초바 자체와 she신 냐마를 뒤송도 디바샤바스 냐마를 뒤송송 네 디바샤바 로통타 쉐와 차공아 셰데 추진하다바 송장스 세변의 냐와 남의 제바레스 세변의 고냐와 남의 제바 디바다마토네 남의 제바다 keba shiwa tat reni so mi jiwa la subi dunga tayiba nyungwa dunga tayiba nyungwa tinga zi jabu son dos tinga jabu du churwa tinga zi jabu son so sa teta yin anda ku juni mo anda diba madan ku momo nyungu chungwa de dingina shaba jeba del tunda meba mares Shada Majina te le dunga chawatan yore munyo yongres teta yin shaba teme to munju te masha na te yu jang dunga chawatan yun rinwa dunga nyugu bishiro wate jirme wate baduro guba tere guba ta kante jabu bayu shi jabu yinbar jabu bayu shi jabu me jiro 그런 제메들 모두다지 모두다지 좀 봐이죠 모두다지 좀네 다고 가르치 봐 있는 제마 그 줘봐 줘도 나바 선지 봐 근데 줘봤다 줘봐 되고 저러다
라서
안 최대 주주 안 줘봐 최대 줘봐 면 자쳐와 시신 냐마를 뒤송도 디바샤다 냐마를 뒤송송 디바샤고 아레스 로통자 셔와 차공아 동타 셔와차 고추 공알 추진 하다바 송장 습회는 그 녀와나면 지송어스 녀와나 디바도 그 아버지 다마도 이제로다 녀와나면도 지와다 녀와나면도 지와 띵에서 잡을 송소사 띵에서 잡을 송도스 다고 샤바 제발 돈다 매바마 샤바 마진나 테위 동에 치와다 데레 위아니 마뇽 그레스 와도 고바드렌도 고바트야
The Rinpoche, the Gupa, the Jayan Sheba, Sache, the Jipa, the Ngama Cherang Garilas.
고바들로와들 고바 장시베 와드 사지 미트레 간자 제보 가지라 망에 장사 강사 집어 가지 내부터 좀 사단 집어이나 디바 마다 받는 요아레스
Jipa.
어디 제부 바이 시제 모든 단제 중원의 최대신 안에 개발자와 그 수준은 디바 몸보샤네 그 마다네 녀원나멜 제요아레스 띵은 잡을 손도 어디 제르미제 띵은 잡을 손도 다그 디바 주는 샤바데 된다 매바 마레스 디바 마샤나 디위 동에 치와다 대유야리마 노게 그래서 어디 고바들도 어디 고바
Lesso.
자지버 어디 제르미 고바들 된다로 어때레스
Then the Giant Sheba Sache Jipa.
사지 지바 대임바다 never good job because shit them but the Sherat Shiva Niji, then Chabato Tuism Sumarbe, Saji Jiro. Tell Jaju Saji Jine, Tombo Dujin Chisontan, Tomashi, Debashi, and Shiba Temarbe, Tazu, Patajiba, Shibatro, Shiba, Kurung Shibatro, Shibatro Gudiruko.
They go by array. Okay,
yeah.
Two chinas. So specifically, the section that we're in, when we look at Jayan Sheba's outline, is in the fourth section. There are 9 parts. This is going to be the 9th part. The 9th part is, or the 9th, the 9th one, is that there are some persons who can't eliminate their karma, or that it's not definite that all persons can eliminate their karma. So that's the 9th category of the 4th. So it reads as follows: it is not definite that some particular persons can eliminate their karma. Buddha spoke of this in the King of Concentration Sutra. King Suradatta killed Supupakandra and felt contrite about it. He built a stupa and made very extensive offerings 3 times each day, and he would confess his sins. He did this for 950 billion years. Even though he maintained his ethical discipline correctly in that way, upon his death, he was reborn in unrelenting hell. For 10 or 20 billion eons, he experienced limitless suffering, having his eyes squeezed out and so forth. Nonetheless, confession is not senseless, for if you do not confess sins, you will experience sufferings that are greater and of longer duration than if you had confessed them. So here, this category deals with a person named King Suradatta who killed his wife, and then felt regret for having done this. So Rinpoche said, develop that first opponent power of eradication. So he developed this idea within his mind. And then as a result, he built stupas and made very extensive offerings, as it says. And he acknowledged his downfalls and did this for 950 billion years. And then even though he maintained his ethics, he was still born in the unrelenting hell for a very long time. But if you do not confess, then no purification will take place. So if the confession takes place, then it can shorten the duration of certain types of suffering. But if we do not acknowledge these downfalls, then they will have to come to fruition and then stay for as long as that karma can produce the experience. So we can shorten the length of time of the experience if we acknowledge our downfalls, even if we still have to experience, as this king did, the suffering as a result of our negativities for a long time. So our acknowledgement of the downfalls will shorten the duration. And Diksun. So as a result of doing this deed, the king killing his wife, the King of Concentration Sutra said that he had his eyes squeezed out and so forth. So the karma resulted in this experience for having done this to his wife. So this is the 9th.
Tak ngabatero ngabatene jajibi chebadu tuji jambu chude saji jedine tambude ne debasabal jemanyaba majaba tamba tuji jenji cheta sombe tawnasu sombala jongures tambuje neba ton shejubi chu som neba je deba shejubi chu somba marbe
lasso
da chu zomu je jebaro jebadele oto gudin ta goba tsanro ta ngaba tene ote Ngabade Okasa Yanjibi the no what the jig on Jibatel good in the good saro. Tangabater Ngaba. Ngabad what Ngabadil what and Madu water. Ngabad what the Shudre Ngabad what the Sugure Ngaba Shadnaji Lama Mabara Daba Yidu Chu Jones Tangaba Jaji with Saji Jig on the Ngabadele Jibadel good in Gutsaro that and Saji Ngabad water and Shadnaji Lama Maluba Dadu Chu Jang Tomba Nebi Magubi Tabatan Shane Tabani Chebachetes Buna Shansa Tonga Jumala Shansenji Domba Lambe Sheju Nujang Setela Nasatombo Tu Masiba Sumba Tabos Da Nabataba Dundole Jang Jundende Kete Lalashi Debi Trubi Waki Chubwa Tabo the Jebber Jonas Jonden the Tice Denila Cheta Tabanjoro Teki Suba dance Jonden the Jays Jambe Junu Jobal Tajun Jambe Sanjil Shu Sanjik Jujun Jambe Land of Sarwa Jambe Junu Jobal and Teki Jikatse to Jambe Pawo Gete Lodunji Pato Niji Jin Tuson to Niabala Shana Tiwoto Shawan Jutesa Dibata Tugres Shinchi Nuna Kiabaju Zobatu Tubanjuro Tibata Jan, Chetara Shonaya, Chetara Nunaya, Zobatubala, Keba Juguba, Sonso, Tena Maluba Tabi, Tene, Debu Yidumuwa, Jiba, Taba Yiji, Lanji Tuba Jawasune, Rendun Rua Yimbe, Tambane, Magubala Beguzos, Magubala Beguzo, T-shirt. Papa na sugi shean di tong chamu la nyeji de munjuba sonde shabin daba tamu ne majunwa ni cheba mena tetar shemu gubi shiro sa jiden na ya thantis kanla su and never shir Juzu Jang Tambune and Maneba the Mandawa Jinos. What did that Janji with Jig on the Nabadre, Jibadele Goodin Gutsaro, the Nabat what about the Takante what the song was at that. Dibat never told you some Shadajin Dibat Taturis, Nami Taturis, Nami Tagare. What the Satan would the neighbor to yourself, Bishop John rest. And what the Deva Sabaina and Devasa and neighbor to Shadan Jibaina, Devada Tanaris, Nami Takaris, Inaya, Solan du Jean, Tolan Satambo, Tobala, Bishop John rest, Per Hindu Jagaris, to that what did tell her what did Nada do water, what then Mangato Kalelu, no one the Hijan.
Lessa.
Yeah.
Touche. Okay, near the
Tombo Dudicilla.
Napa, the Mingare?
Naba Tere.
Minga, the Sache Ming.
Shadna Lama Meba, Dadu Chujan, Tombo ne Madaba Cheba Yoris, Cheba, Naba. Shadna Diba Taturis. Tombo Nine, 디베 마고바다 샤나 타바닐 쳐요르스 어 사지들 자지고 어떨래
So now we've gone through Jayan Sheba's outline so far and completed 4 sections. So the first section in Jayan Sheba's outline deals with those non-virtuous deeds that we do even though we don't want to, because we are under the influence of not knowing or under the influence of the afflictions. And that when we do those negativities, we shouldn't just disregard them or just move on. We should recall that those deeds are negative and then apply some sort of an antidote or a remedy. And the text, it states, it talks about a method, the remedy about which the compassionate teacher spoke. So we have to apply remedies to those non-virtues that we do, even if they were done without our wanting to. So this is the first category, and in the outline it is a lot of words like that too, in Jayan Sheba's outline. There's not a shortened, abbreviated. Yakshu. Sabudu.
네 데보 마사바다 산 다바닐 치워요르스 오데레도
Yeah. So that's the first. The second category in Jayan Sheba's outline deals with how to remedy downfalls or infractions. The third category deals with how to remedy the misdeeds or sins. So then the fourth category deals with a philosophical inquiry into these points, and then we find that the non-virtues are removed in various ways, and then there are 9 categories in that section. So now we've arrived at the 5th section, and the 5th section deals with the point that there's a big difference between a purified fault and not having committed the fault in the first place. So this is the point, this is the heading in the 5th category. So I'll begin reading. Through confession and restraint, you can purify yourself of sins without any remainder. However, there is a vast difference between the purity of having never been tarnished by a fault from the beginning and the purity attained through confession of that fault. So again, there's a big difference between not accumulating the non-virtue in the first place and accumulating it and then purifying it. So then we find a quote from the Bodhisattva's levels, Lord Asanga's, the Shansa Tome. Dene Shansa Tome. Okay. So then we find a quote from the Bodhisattva levels by Great Master Asanga. It says, you can redress the occurrence of a root affraction through adopting the Bodhisattva vow. However, it will be impossible to attain the first Bodhisattva level in this lifetime. So even though you can turn around or purify all of the negativities that one engages in. And here we find the example of a root infraction. And here it says, through adopting the bodhisattva vow, but it's impossible to attain the first bodhisattva level, or first bodhisattva ground. So the first bodhisattva ground occurs at the path of seeing. So when we look at the Mahayana 5 paths, we have the path of accumulation, we have the path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation, the path of no more learning. Once one reaches the path of seeing, then at that point he or she is on the first bodhisattva ground, or the first bodhisattva level. So that occurs at the path of seeing. So it's stating that it's not possible to attain that first bodhisattva level in this lifetime if one engages in a root downfall, or and then even purifies it. So it's showing the difference. And then Rinpoche said, we can use this example that if one breaks his or her leg, then it definitely, when it is repaired, isn't as strong as an unbroken leg. Even though the break has been fixed, it's no longer broken, it's not as strong as it was before that happened. So this is a good example that allows us to understand that a negativity engaged in but purified is very different than not engaging in it at all. And then it says further, the sutra gathering all the threads states that even though you clear away sins, you will need at least 10 eons to attain the level of forbearance, second of the 4 levels of the path of preparation. The youthful Manjushri asked, "O Bhagavan, if someone under the influence of a sinful companion were to do such a thing as abandon the teaching, how, Bhagavan, would this person be freed from that in this lifetime?" The Bhagavan replied, "Manjushri, if you were to confess your fault 3 times a day for 7 years, you would clear it away. Subsequent to this, you would attain the level of forbearance in 10 eons at the least." Therefore, complete purification means to completely purify yourself of the arising of unpleasant effects. I think that's how I'm going to read just to here. However, since you greatly extend the time needed to attain such things as knowledge of the past, strive not to be tarnished by faults from the start. The Buddha said that for this reason, noble beings do not consciously engage in even the subtlest of sins or infractions, even for the sake of their own lives. If it was the case that purity through confession was similar to faults that have never taken place, then there would be no need to act in this way. This is also evident in the world. Although an injured hand, foot, and so on may heal, they are different from the ones that never had an injury.
다 샹사 그런 장도 샹사 러면 봐봐 도면 말해. 상가 그런 거와. 샹사 레스 자동송와스 다 자동송 샹주 선비 동발 자유 동안 주제요 말해서 자유 동안 주제.
Leso.
달을 되봐 현라면 다도 제면 초대면 샤자면 어때 시중 거라요 나로요. 샹주 선발 자유 동안 주제요 말해.
Leso. 타봉에
자유 동안 주제에 강로와 shum바이나 야자 상주 선비 동발랑 시주제나 다도 도그레스 자유 동안 숑아 상주 선비 자유 동안 숑아 샹세 동안 숑아라 샹세지 동발랑 비 시주 누장스 샹세지 동발랑네 시주기나 어디 시주 다도 도그레스 쳇들라 사동부 두개 지바이나 사동부 두무도 차는 그레스 쳇들라 사동부 모두바 송바타보스
Leso.
어디가 도 지라다 칼레지란.
So, again, we have a quote from the great master Asanga from his bodhisattva levels. And it says, you can redress the occurrence of a root infraction through adopting the bodhisattva vow. However, it will be impossible to attain the first bodhisattva level in this lifetime. So here, you can redress the occurrence of a root infraction. So when we, this is speaking of the bodhisattva vow. And when we look at the bodhisattva vow, there are root vows and then there are secondary vows. There are 18 root vows, beginning with not criticizing others and so forth, or not disparaging or criticizing others while speaking of your good qualities. There are 18 root vows. So if someone who has a bodhisattva vow breaks one of those root vows, and then he or she takes the bodhisattva vow again, then there is a purification that takes place. The non-virtue can be purified. However, it makes it impossible to achieve that first bodhisattva level in that lifetime because there was that occurrence of the root infraction. This is what is meant in the bodhisattva, Sangha's bodhisattva levels.
Tatanama Nabatava Dubi Indole said what the Jambeyan Sanjil Shu, Sanjin Jambeyan Leja, Yansa Kushin, and the Jambeyan Kushin River, and the Sanjik the land, the land Legdua, Ledia. Oh, Nabatava Dubi Indole, Junden de Sanjil Shu Kente. Jambeyan Jiro, Jambeyan Ji, and the Sanjil Jonden de Kete Lala Shi Dibi, Trubi Wanki, Chubun the Tabu, Jeba Chunas, Chubung later Tabu, Sabaina, Jonden de Tize, Denila, Cheta Town Juros, Kuchubung late Sabain, Kuchubung late the Tower, Debat Candes Dagares, Tekiji Suba dance. Jambeyan Sanjil Shubares, Tekiji Subatan. That Jonden de Jambeyan la Enso Marbe, Jonden de Ji, Jambe Junu Jubala, Tekiji Katzeto, Jambe Kete, Lodunjibatu, Nichi King, Tusundo, Niabala, Niawashana, Tiwood Shanju, Diba Tagares. Lo dunji bato nyama jijin to tu song to nyeba ala nyeba la nyeba joba jene diba shaba ina ti ud diba tan res taba jode shinshi nyona keba ju zoba tuba joros shinshi lo wat ko zoba ju to jena keba juba Zobatum to Char Marba, Keba Jusan Marba.
The Julam.
Shinji Nona, Keba Ju Zobatuba. Zobaton Zobat, the Zobatan, that teaching Zobat to Zinjira. Tonan Tuba to Zinjira. What the Tubalot and the Keba Jubat Johners, Keba Jubas in Marba.
The Tonlan, the Zuba, the
Tonlon Zuba Jayoro, Tonlon Sheba Judu Zuba on Jayoro,
Tonlan,
what the Nijan and you is it?
Tonlan.
Devasabarina Ku, what the Keba Juba Duro, what the Zuba Tomato Channels, to General Hanogres,
Lesser.
What the Song Damat and Rabudua?
Lesser. So here we'll find a quote from the sutra, the gathering all threads. Gangyasena the Injike, the Tsolan Julam, the Julan Ewa Je, the Nipa.
Zuba Chuchu.
Zuba, the
Julan Zuba Chuchu.
Tama.
What Zuba says, you do. Tonon Zuba, you are Zuba. Karel Jan and Rabunda Injire.
Drapudu. Injike, the consult the Trisum. Jalpadan, Drapudu. Okay, so we have the sutra gathering all threads, and we have a question and answer that's going to take place between Lord Buddha and Manjushri. So I'll read this through. And it says, further, the sutra gathering all the threads states that even though you clear away sins, you need at least 10 eons to attain the level of forbearance, the second of the 4 levels of the path of preparation. The youthful Manjushri asked, "O Bhagavan, if someone under the influence of a sinful companion were to do such a thing as abandon the teaching, how, Bhagavan, would this person be freed from that in this lifetime?" The Bhagavan replied, "Manjushri, if you were to confess your fault 3 times a day for 7 years, you would clear it away. Subsequent to this, you would attain the level of forbearance in 10 eons at least." Therefore, a complete purification means to purify yourself of the arising of unpleasant effects. However, since you greatly extend the time needed to attain such things as the knowledge of the past, strive not to be tarnished by faults from the start. So here, Rinpoche also said, when we look at the path of preparation, there are 4 levels. The heat, peak, patience, and the last mundane state. So we also have this forbearance level at the path of seeing as well, Rinpoche said. So this forbearance, we have a heading name at the path of seeing where this forbearance is also. So just as a note, the commentary in parentheses here speaks of it at the path of preparation, but Rinpoche mentioned that. And I believe that's everything. So the point is that we can purify the fruition of the karma itself. In times it means shortening the duration of the suffering that takes place. Digsun.
What Maluba Tabiton, Diba Maluba Tasat, Debu Yidu Mo and Jimba Maluba Taba Yijis, Debu Yidu Mo Tadunge, later Dunge, the Maluba Tabiton, that is, Taba Yiji, Lange Tuba Joa into Swan Sune, Roa Yimbe, Tombane Maguba and Beguzos. What the Diba Taba Inaya, Lange Tuba, Trustum Zuba Chuchu, Tolan Zuba the ne sheba oto su juli jeba la tari me chan ure. Tengi sonson deba tat chu jang tamba nini deba masaba dang sa ne taba nini cheba yuwares. Tamba nini deba masaba la be wores. Wate beba yina wate guba cheba yuwares. Wate son te na maluba tabi tuyane deba yidu mo anjimba maluba taba yinches. Diba tasya diba tikin rebo dunga ta nyawa ngason chewa la soba tasu taba la kogwa res lanchi tuba chewa su rin tun ruwa yinba ne te lukha res ne te tamba nyin diba masaba la mbe gu res beba shawos ti shir tamba nyin diba masaba la mbe gu res jusen kares na papa na suki she Deba Tamalaya, Shinto, Manjuba Sundes, Papa Dozo, and Sul Tuba in Deba Tamatuso, and Tamalaya, Shajin Jogumares, and the Deba Sugisha, and the Sazajan Deba the Masaba Jaguares. What the Deba Doja and Yua Mena, Papa Zug, then the Songomares, Papa Zug, Deba Tamazaya. Ne masaba te sun guya de jusen teres deba san ta chu jang wa de julan tourism zoba chu su toba la jure mi chan guya jang phaba chu wa de sun res shapi daba ta tamne majo ani che menas deba shapi daba ta tamne deba maji bani cheba mena an phaba chu ta da shagu mares Tata Shamu Gubisharosa Papazugo, then till Chaba Yozan Papazugo Sultuna, then Diba Sago Maris.
Lissa.
Jidena Nante Kalasu Temba Shechus Chujang, Tambane, Maneba, the Mandawa Genus, Kamba Chaba, the Kamba Machabani. Chan Suba Machabani Chabayu Tenda Boris on the Isare. What about Otere?
So this is number 5, and it's showing that there's a difference between purification that's a non-virtue that's been purified and not having engaged in the non-virtue at all. So then we find all of these points that are made about that. So now Geshe Rinpoche summarizes after the quote from the Sutra Gathering All the Threads and says, therefore, complete purification means to completely purify yourself of the arising of unpleasant effects. So if there is a complete purification, then all of the negative experiences, suffering experiences, are eradicated as well. However, since you greatly extend the time needed to attain such things as knowledge of the path, strive not to be tarnished by faults from the start. The Buddha said that for this reason, noble beings do not consciously engage in even the slightest of sins or infractions, even for the sake of their own lives. So by engaging in non-virtuous activities, it causes us to us to take much longer to achieve the various knowledges of the paths of accumulation, preparation, seeing, meditation, and so forth. So it really lengthens that period of time for that wisdom to arise. So this is really very different than having not engaged in that non-virtue at all. So we see that there still is this experience that comes from the deed itself. That's it. So we have to be very careful. Okay, so then it says, the Buddha said that for this reason, noble beings do not consciously engage in even the slightest, subtlest of sins or infractions, even for the sake of their own lives. If it was the case that purity through confession was similar to faults that have never taken place, then there would be no need to act in this way. So beings who, Arya beings, superior beings, try to abstain from non-virtuous activities. It says even for the sake of their own lives, because they recognize the negativity that comes from or arises from engaging in even the subtlest of non-virtues. These very subtle non-virtues give rise to experience still, and although they can be purified, they still tarnish one's future happiness, their future happiness and potential, as it says. And the potential is in the it extends the time needed to attain such things as knowledge of the path. So we have to be very careful at the beginning to not engage in the non-virtue, to not accumulate the non-virtue, just as the Aryas do. So if it wasn't the case that there was this negativity when we engaged in non-virtue, then the Arya beings wouldn't need to behave in the way that they do. It wouldn't be necessary for them to abstain from non-virtuous activities if just a simple acknowledgement of the downfall and so forth would purify it in the same way that having not done it in the first place, the same way not having done it in the first place is, the same way not having done it in the first place doesn't produce any of those negative results. I know that was a run-on sentence, but I think everybody understands what I'm saying. So, so then. Decent.
This one. That robot or the Takante Jasun bought Marbe, both Ushin Jasun Rota. Triabu Mena, Kushine, and the Tuzin Chunasa and the Momushinado. What the God, the Abu Deba Momasabaina, what the Jasun and Tuzin Shira Navares, Tuzin Shinate, Jasun San Momushigarota. What the Deba Mosabaina, what the Debi Kui Jason or Hunu is the Kui Jason Hunu. That the Presipi Tabuyana and the Jason or Lel Habajine 파간 조작 말বে both 파간 조작 말বে 데버 마사바이나 어디 쿠이자수 바르드는 타발로 또 그래 상제살로 또 그래 던로로 또 그래스 네 both very good both dramas 네 both tos chunon sabaina 어디 데바 사샤바데 어디 both chunon 사바다 그래스 뿌다제네 냐수 랭구베 빼사 뿌땡 도스 자지베 both니 bodo자데 자수노 브로케 몸무시는 말베 어디 디바 몸사바이나 드라브레스 쿠이자수노 론드레스 테네 보디 아가데 테네 든 디바 마사바이나 어디 네 쿠이자수 파르도 상제살 해는 그래 타발 해는 그래 던들 해는 그래 어디 보디 아버도 파르도 로나브레스 뿐이jan 송도스 다 대 어디 두디지마도 모두 대단한 베베 총례사 데바시시 소노 마젤라스 데바 모모사 소노 마사바이나 데바시시 소노 마젤라 추던 괴신 추미 투비메 추던 괴신 추던 가가차네 추마이바 투비 메데 디빌레나 치유지 주데 디빌레나 치유지 추제나도 주신시바진스 추제노 오셔마르바 오셔는 주신시 보트 브로키 컨트라브레스 example 1 주신시바진 소노 셰신 데바 마질라 소노 아부사 데바 마사케 네메데 담바나지 르지 추시베 담바나지 르지 추제베 테네 나야 치유면지데 제가 나시 동을 신나요 말이스 치유면지데 템비 주의 파른 로아신스 템비 조 포 자수 파르든 로나 버스 쿠이자조 파르든 엔데 타발로 도그로 상제 살로 도그레 덴루도 드반담 덴담을 손데 인사데
Jacob. Okay. The number, now we're on number 6 of Jayan Sheva's outline, and it deals with the two examples or analogies of a boat. Of a sturdy boat and a boat that's breaking. So this is the 6th category. So through striving in that way, you should do as the collection of indicative verses says. A person of sinful conduct who has committed sins and not gained merit, who has parted from the teaching and attained its opposite, will fear death like a wheat boat breaking apart in a great river. A person who has gained merit and has not committed sins, and who has practiced the teaching of the Holy One system, will never fear death, like a sturdy boat going across the river. So here the analogy is being made, or the comparison is being made between non-virtuous activities and a boat that's breaking apart, a leaking boat. So if we have a boat and we're in the water or in the ocean and it starts to break it apart, then everyone would be killed. Everyone would drown and die if there was no boat for them to, float in if it broke apart. So it says, "Will fear death." This is something that is very dangerous. Likewise, engaging in non-virtuous activity keeps us bound to cyclic existence. So then it says, a person who has gained merit and has not committed sins and who has practiced the teaching of the Holy One system will never fear death, like a sturdy boat going across a river. Here, the river that we're speaking of is the river of cyclic existence. So one is able to take that sturdy boat to the higher realms, take that sturdy boat of virtuous behavior to liberation, take that sturdy boat of virtuous behavior to complete Buddhahood. So this comparison is made between non-virtue and a bad boat, and virtue and a good boat. This is number 6 in Jayan Sheva's outline, and we are able to be free from the suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death and able to go to the other side of cyclic existence, across a river. So the other side of cyclic existence to liberation and Buddhahood. That's it for that section. So it's time to take a break.
사진 아바들 디바 마사바들 디바 산에 쳇다바닐 치고 요아르스 나바들 돈다데레도아 다 주바들 거데레면데 네 주바들 왔다 데들 총레 디바
Druzin.
프로 베베 디바 제신 소나 마젤라 추당 쿠진 추미 투비메 네 디비 레진 치유 진주데스 디바사간테 워데 제가 나치 동안라 수근 지바 용거레스 추진나도 주sen시바진스 보 오션얼 브로킹 된다브레스 마르바
Lesso.
디바 마주 그와사바데 워데 트루비다 보 자수 바르드노 버스 타바다 돈도다 오든로바 된다도 오데 텐데도와
Lesso. So, when we look at Jayan Sheba's outline, number 5, there is a difference between a non-virtue that has been accumulated and purified and not having engaged in the non-virtue at all. So that's number 5. And then number 6 deals with an analogy. Virtue and non-virtue are compared to boats. Non-virtue compared to a bad boat, and virtue compared to a good boat. So it says that a person of sinful conduct who has committed sins and not gained merit, and who has parted from the teaching and attained its opposite, will fear death like a weak boat breaking apart in a river. So one will achieve, as a result of engaging in non-virtue and not gaining merit, the various sufferings. So one will experience, as a result, these sufferings of birth, aging, sickness, and death. And this is what this bad boat brings us to. Brings us to the experience of suffering. And then our virtuous deeds are compared to a good boat. It says a person who has gained merit and not committed sins and who has practiced the teaching of the Holy One system will never fear death, like a sturdy boat going across the river. So the virtuous deeds are then compared to a sturdy, a good boat that gets us across the river to the other side, to the higher realms of cyclic existence of the gods, humans, to liberation, to complete Buddhahood. So this is the 6th category in the examples that are given. Digsum.
Yeah. What that then? That then the mandare 다 듄바도 말바 듄바 도어테 자지 미트 타고도 듄바들레 강시 바위 냐소래 수수 강시바 냐래 제바 지라 계시오레스 수수 강시바데 몸부시 냐래 맞은 된다지라 요 말레스 근데 사지 듄바데 그때 때도 수수 가지 시바데게 몸무 마시바이나 뉴뉴질 마시나 냐래 지기나 된다지오레스 몸부시바이나야 냐래 마제바이나 된다지라 요 말레스 듄바데 그때 때도 스레다
So number 7 deals with the need for practice. So if you know a lot, or you know a medium amount, or you understand a small amount, you need to practice. Because if you know a great amount, but you don't practice, then this won't be helpful. So you have to put these words into practice. You have to do what is beneficial. So this is number 7. Do not act like the person of the first verse, but do whatever you can to act like the person of the second verse. Further, there is little sense in saying many reasonable words, but acting in an unruly way. Even if you know only a little, there is great benefit in practicing whatever teaching you know by casting aside what is wrong and adopting what is right. The collection of indicative verses says. So whatever your level of learning is, you need to engage in practice.
And pucha mobushi, Ramana mobushi, yoba ina, Nyale majiba ina tonda chuchung res. Tian rebi si motum he jang, Pa meba chuna ton chung las. And pucha mobushi, Shia mobu yoba ina, Nyale majin tonda chuchung res. Chuchung le meshe jang, Kanga sheba de, Dolen ji, Bruna, Tonchetes, Chumabu Mashinaya, Kan Sheba Nyale Jeba Ino, Tonda Chubres, Tonchung Meshejan, Kan Sheba Dolenji, Druna, Tonda Chetes, Ta Tsung Jango Tsung Tsung Le Gede Reji Modum Mejan, Pame Mata. Tetar shemen jurosa. Tak chu mobusheba ina nyale majin tonda chuchung se to utere mudwe. Kede reji moto me jan chu mobushia yoba, kal mobushia yoba, nyale majina pame mata tetar jomen juro teje. Pena shuzi jenji shuran tarasa. Pena Shuzis Kyobo Marba, Shuzis Jengi, and Susul Sentient and Mabaji, Majenda, Sentient and Hadam, Shudon Tarar. Teda Gaju Kyoa to my Inza. Kete Reji, no to touch you, Mum Mashiba, Numal Mashiba Inaya, Kete Reji, no Meji Jang. Chuji Jisu Chula, Shubatan, Desa Shedan Tamu, Ponsheba, Tada Gajun Kewa, Tuba Yins, Chuji Mum Machine, Chuji Numadu Machine, Yale Jena, what Dunda Chibres, Gajun Kewa Tuba Yins, Galun Bayo La Gashin, Pame Bala Jitayu, Pame Bala Jitayu. Dajin Gandro Len Dantesa Glutene Payo Bala Gabuji, Pa Mebala, and Jibata the King, they wote Dajin Gandrul Tagres, National Chigamares, Gandro Len Dante Danza Len Lanchin Jinsa Danza Tai Lanchin Jinsa. Gano Bayo La Gashin, Pamela Jitayu, Deba Tanji, Trubarshe, Longi Junshin, Longi Junshin, what the Loni done, what the Secondua. I got it done that. So Mamma Shiba, Shiba in Yanajina, Toda Shiburis. Momushia, Momushina, Yanamajin, Toda Shira Morris. What they that Duba de Tonda Lord, the Tangus, the Tanjaji. Yeah.
So now we're in number 7. It is that we do not act like the person of the verse, but do whatever you can to act like the first verse, but do what you can to act like the person of the second verse. Further, there is little sense in saying many reasonable words, but acting in an unruly way. Even if you know only know a little, there is a great benefit in practicing whatever teaching you know by casting aside what is wrong and adopting what is right. The collection of indicative verses says. if we need to engage in these practices that we read about and know about. If we don't engage in the practices, then there really won't be any meaning behind what we're studying. So it's really necessary for us to apply at whatever level we are at the practices that are applicable to ourselves, to us. Because without doing so, we really won't get anywhere. So you have to behave in this way. So then we have this quote from the collection of indicative verses. It says, "The unruly may speak at length on what is reasonable, yet they do not act accordingly. Like herdsmen counting others' livestock, they do not attain the fortune of virtuous practice." So there's really no meaning to, no benefit, no meaning to counting, a herdsman counting someone else's livestock, because they will be of no benefit. If somebody is a scholar or understands this very well, but still acts in a non-virtuous way, they won't attain what is meaningful. They won't attain the happiness. So they will attain suffering. Those who practice the teaching in accordance with their instructions and eradicate attachment, hostility, and ignorance attain the fortune of virtuous practice. Though they may speak little of what is reasonable. Here, if you practice the teachings, then you get rid of this, the three poisons of attachment, hatred, and ignorance. Then you achieve the fortunes of virtuous practice, the various positive experiences. Through delighting in conscientiousness and in fearing unruliness, monks pull themselves from the miserable realms like elephants pull themselves from the mud. Through delighting in conscientiousness and fearing unruliness, monks shake off all sins like the wind shakes leaves from trees. That's it. Decent.
다 고바 제바드로 제바들 자지 미도 다건도 제바들 제발월에 야다비 타왕하트 야다비 타와데 아부시라레스 나주제도 제르메지와데 사지 제바들 야다비 타와데 아부시라레스 워텔에 유전적으로 하바주도 야다비 타왕하트 제바데
맞아요.
제바도 원든 말에도다 Tatanas Shidinless, Tatana Shidin Goblo do Marve, Shidinle, Kete Ture Tabango Shenas, Kete Ture Tabango, Ture Sena Dendu Marve, Ture Tabango Shena, Tabal Gabajiba Hina, Yanda Tala, Kumba, Tatu Jusa, Turel Gabo, Denur Gabo. 타발 가보요나 야다비 타왈 네 공바제고르스 야다비 타왈 네 로종제고르스 투종 산종시라 워드는 그냥래 제고르스 야다비 타왈 와도 공바셰바이나 토리 덴도 용거레 네 타바 용거레스 워드스고에저로다 야다 달라 공바타 돈주사 가자 로바타이 레시장 가자 로바타이 레시장 타제 나면 해봐 메제 된사 가자 로바타이 레시장 타제 나면 해봐 메제 된 시송바타르 땡진 저번 종알레 땡진 저번 종알레니 조단 제보 제발라 취진도 따완데네 티바 탄지다 제비 탄지 주비 제메도 모로와 임베 하시베 춘네 잠반이 자다 두단르다 레자다 도제 잡아단도와 롱기 Julin Natan, Soro Jen Dali Chang, Tene, Neba Shudala Jun Renwa, Cheba Shawane, Genji Tendo, Genji Neji Tendo, Zon Shaos, what that the Tibetan Buddhism, what Marba. Tenzin Debanjong Leni, Kabile and Nabile, Leni, Judan Debut Jebala, Chujin to Tawandene, Nabile and the Kabi, Nabile and the Poya, Kabile and the Yansulaya, what is Jebatawandene, Tibetan Dan, GB, Tanji, Ruby, Jimed Mororis, and what the Kabile and Nabil. Nabilende, Pum Kabilende, Yansunayate, Tibetan Jetan, Netuji Tibetan, Rajaji Tibetan, Tijinji Tibetan, Sanga Tibetanji, Tanjil Menamor, Tanjil Gugres, Chibi, Tanji Ruby, Jimedumores, Chibi, Tunda, and Tanji Ruby, Jimedumor, what they Nabil and the Pum Kabil and the Yansunaya at the radio address, MBS, and then Hashi, going to lend a Monson Sarvata, Tune, and then Tambanija Durindo, Tambanija Tandudan Lentan, Lejatan, Tuju Jabatan, Doa Lungi, Julin Nantan. Soro Jena Jang, Tene, Neba Shu Tala, Jun Renwa, Jeba Shawane, Neji Tando, Zon Shavos, Negachibi with Kogres, what the Zon do what they, Jeba to get that do something.
So now we are at number 8. So it deals with the need to familiarize oneself with the correct view. So this is the 8th point in Jayan Sheba's outline. It says, this being so, the proper view of dependent arising and the causality of the two types of karma is the indispensable foundation for the practices of all the vehicles and the aims of all beings. As Nagarjuna's friendly letter says, if you actually desire high status as a human or deity and liberation, you must familiarize yourself with the correct view. With wrong views, even a person who acts well will have terrible fruitions in all lives. Hence, using what has been explained as illustrations, you should look at Mindfulness of the Excellent Teaching, the Sutra of the Wise and the Foolish, the 100 Action Sutra, the 100 Bodhisattva Stories, the prefaces in the Discipline, and other scriptures as well to develop an intense and enduring certainty. Take this to be a goal of crucial importance. So here it says the proper view of dependent arising and the causality of the two types of karma. Here the two types of karma are speaking of the white karma and black karma. So here this is the abandoning the non-virtuous deeds and engaging in the virtuous deeds. This is what the causality of the two types of karma. And then we find this in all vehicles. The karma and its results becomes a very important subject in all vehicles, in the hearer's vehicle, in the solitary realizer vehicle, in the bodhisattva vehicle, in the tantric vehicle. All of these vehicles require this virtuous activity. So here, when in Nagarjuna's friendly letter, where it says, if you actually desire high status as a human or a deity and liberation, you must familiarize yourself with the correct view. The word gom is used, so you could also translate this as you must meditate on the correct view. With wrong views, even a person who acts well will have terrible fruitions. And then the Jayan Sheba Jeba, the Mingare?
Jeba Lotus Adu, Yan Tabitawa Langhans, what then Saji de Nolu Jirmichi, yang tabi tawa di abushira res ngajun zega dus tabi tawa la nga de sa wati tunda lama de jebu yungudwa.
So the section 8, the kind of the main heading is the necessity to meditate on the correct view or familiarize oneself with the correct view.
What that jeba that samba jang samba de jebi se tela ludu se sung nan ta samba jang chandre ta de jebi se dang ludu se wa ni gan le marba.
Oh, okay.
Ta chadore.
So now when we look at the outline of the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, we have the major heading, training the mind, the stage of the path shared in common with beings of small capacity. And then there under that are three categories. First, the actual training of thought of a person of small capacity, and then the measure of the attitude of a person of small capacity, and then dispelling misconceptions related to a person of small capacity. So we've now completed the section, which is the actual training of thought of a person of small capacity, and now we would move into the measure of the attitude of a person of small capacity.
What the jeba de na shidin ro shidin kete turi tabangwe jena turi la dame tan tu dendu tuwa ndoba ta taba tuwa ndoba yoba yina yang da bital ko ma shegu resta ta marba ta dama dele chujin da chuga da ta so marba chujin da chuga da ta so chujin da chuga de shida ya bu so ma tu ba ina ane lende la ichi ki teba tanga kunchu la ichi ki teba yo na nyawal chega ma res lul chen res taman roswa lu yi jabu jasu sanje li shu ne ane sanje kuwa ni jiden shu bi ko so lu nyunu shida res tensan no lu zhang me ba tse me ba re di ju ka res sanje li shu du ane wate jaba tang ane tang ginye tang what the Dumba you can do what the shooting of Sumato, Raji Kaman Kanamato, Chibi Kanamato, Yabsumato, Inaya, Conchula Chikitebata, Lendela Chikiteba, Yuza, Nyon Jigamares, Lul Generes, Sanji Water Sumares, Lul Generes, Marba, Lul Generes, Lotoso, Dendrul Chine, Kazan Sanji Tunle. Tijen le shuba matuba tsama dachon ba tu nukres tamal chin swa wa to su dabu modwe chujin da chuga ta tawa chujin sena raji ji khada matwa pombi chujin chuga sena jibi khada matwa pombi chujin jibi khada matwa pona sanji ge pona su jeba ina chimba ge su je na ya Dibare, Rajung Sujene Dibare, Rajic Kanamatos, Chibi Kanamatos, Bena, Shinjoba to Sukalo, and Glungu Dumadu Kansulete, Chibi Wagineba Jungurmadu, Chimbasulio Marota, Chibi Kanamatoa. Rajic Kanamato, Chibi Kanapum, Tutin, Yabusuma Tunaya, Conchula Chikiteba, Lendela Chikiteba Yona. Nyawal chigmar lul chenegre luma muya teres sanji go lui jab jasu shu marba.
So here in Nagarjuna's friendly letter it says if you actually desire higher status and liberation, so if you want to achieve higher realm rebirth of the gods and humans, if you want to achieve the state of liberation, then you must meditate upon the correct view. So it's not only behaving in a good way, you also have to familiarize yourself with the correct view. And then it talks about, when we look back and we look at the story from the questions of the Naga kings of the ocean, where the Buddha was asked by a Naga, that why in previous times it seemed like the numbers of Nagas had dwindled down to very, very few, but now there were many, many more than there had ever been before. So the Buddha responded by stating that the reason that there were such immeasurable numbers of Nagas now is because previously people engaged in, became ordained, and then engaged in non-virtuous behavior, but were able to keep their faith and conviction in the refuge and karma and its results very solid. Even though they had lapped in ethical discipline is referring to those kind of common ethical behaviors, something that would be common to both those who are ordained and those who are not. And then rituals, which are those behaviors which are uncommon or specific to the ordained, such as not cutting down a tree. Not cutting down a tree we find in the vows of the monk or nun, but it's not common. It's not a ritual or a discipline that's found within the householder's behavior. So that's what's meant uncommon. And then livelihoods also were lapsed. But this philosophical view, the faith and conviction in karma and its results and refuge, was still there. So as a result of that, many of these beings were born as Nagas. So they weren't born into the hell realms, or the lowest of the realms. They were born as Nagas because of not having lapsed on their philosophical view. We find this is very similar to the points that are being made here, that's saying that with wrong views, even a person who acts well will have terrible fruitions in all lives. So if that wrong view isn't present, then there is the potential, like in the case of this, in the question of the Naga kings, for that being to be born and in a higher realm than he or she would have been because of that intact, correct view, that intact faith and conviction. So I know I said it a lot of different ways, but I think it's clear.
Tēnā ngā sō ngāma wā tā shē tā mā rā, nāngā jō nāngā tāna chū sōng nā, sōng tō tō tā pōgō nī kā kā rā, pōgō nī yōng tō wā rā sā. Anā nāngā jō nāngā chū nī kā kā nā kā rā yī sā, tī yō rā sā. Anā ngā nī lō rā, lō kā rā tō yō rā sā, mā rā nā yō rā sā, wā tā shū yō rā sā. Anā sā nī shū rō nī kā zō bā tēn shū wā sā. Anā sā nī khu nī tō chū chabā tā rā nī lē wā yī mā rā wā. Anā chū chū kā ngā chū yō tā chū gō mā rā khā sāng pōgō nī tā rā sā. Wā tā sō, nāngā chū nā sō lō chū mā tō yā. Anā pōgō nī tā rā wā tā lō yī nāng kē shū wā sā. Anā lō yī jā bā lō chū tū, lō yī jā bā lō mā lō yō lō pē rō chī sā. Anā ngā chū nāng pē shū rā sā. Anā ngā bā lō chū wā tā lō yō lō pē lō chū yō rō tā. Wā tā lō tā nē bā chā bā tō tā.
So, this is from Nagarjuna's friendly letter, and we remember the story of Nagarjuna, who was giving teaching, and the two children arrived, and they were covering their mouths, and Nagarjuna asked, why are you covering your mouths to the two children? And they responded by saying that we're doing this because we're really Nagas, and our breath is poisonous to others. And then Nagarjuna said, don't worry, tomorrow come in your natural form, don't come disguised. So the following day, the two children, the two Nagas arrived in their natural state, not disguised as children. And when they arrived, they were very scary to the other participants because they were serpents. And Nagarjuna said, don't worry, these are the two children from yesterday. There's no need to be scared. they are one in the same. So in that story, we have Nagarjuna and this connection to the Nagas. So these are the Nagas that we're speaking of when we are quoting the questions to the Naga kings and so forth, and speaking of the fruition and rebirth as a Naga. These are the same. The Nagas mentioned in Nagarjuna's story, and the Naga in these points that are being made. Nagas and these points being made.
What the look at Rubo what the Chudem was
So the Gombolodru, the
Naga have Nagarjuna.
Ale. So the many Nagas helped Master Nagarjuna. The Gombolodru, Lo Rinpoche sung, Lo Nagarjuna Rinpoche.
Nagarjuna Rinpoche.
Okay, I said it right.
Nagarjuna Rinpoche, Mom Nietzsche, Jedno, Sulu, Come, look at this tail, Maris, would the dead chit or as losing Yadis.
I held it down. A guy, the Becha.
Nietzsche, Jedno, to the Nagarjuna Lula, come,
Oh, I see. So Nagarjuna was able to retrieve the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras from the Nagas, and he retrieved the 100,000 verse Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, the 20,000 verse, and the 8,000 verse. So he was able to carry them back up, but the Nagas were really holding these texts down in their realm. So Rinpoche is saying we're really holding on to these texts, and Nagarjuna was able to retrieve them. Diksun. That's so. So we now, when we're looking at the outline, training the mind in the stage of the past shared in common with beings of small capacity is the major heading. And then we have three categories: the actual training of thought of a person of small capacity, the measure of the attitude of a person of small capacity, and dispelling misconceptions about the person of small capacity. So we've completed the actual training of thought of a person of small capacity section, and now we've arrived at the measure of the attitude of a person of small capacity, and then we'll move on to the dispelling misconceptions of a person of small capacity, and then we'll be done with that section.
Nimba somebody chibi said the Nimba somebody chibi said this Hanji den de Tuni Juma Maiba Yulasa Jiden Shimi Chi Jinja Yukua Zanto Yuate Kusapune Shimi Duntu Sonjin Shimi Duntu Sonjins Jiden de Shajun Zantu Sona Jeba Yinlasa somebody chibi said what there is and Chenmo Shamani Dona, Tanangazu, Chenmo Zuji Waters, Chenmo this life, Zuji Waters. And that's somebody Jibi said, Cheshima Penjigi, Dunda Zuji, Cendi Dunda Shajunla, Chinsuna, and somebody Jibi said what the Jideshima doing, somebody Jibi said what there is. Tananga Cendilla. Gabaji wore, Shamba Yoro. Then Naji, Jiva Shema Penji Gabaji, Sendi Danda, Shajon to Sombayina, Shemi Danda, somebody said what there is. What there is.
So the measure of the attitude of a person of small capacity. Previously you had an uncontrived interest in this life, while your interest in future lives has merely been an understanding that follows what others say. You have generated the attitude of a person of small capacity when these interests change places and your interest in the future has become paramount, while your interest in this life has become merely incidental. However, you must make this attitude stable. Thus, once it has occurred, cultivate it diligently. So here there's a change in the attitude So previously we thought of this life and we're interested in this life. And then as a result of this, we become interested in more in future lives. So once we have this interest more in future lives, and it is very solid, then we see that we have really achieved this attitude of a person of small capacity. So if we were to say, how do we measure this attitude? We measure it by seeing if one has generated this interest in future lives and kind of abandoned this interest in this life, has kind of switched switch the emphasis on those. So for previously having more emphasis on this life, and then switching it to an emphasis on the future life. So this is the measure of if someone has the attitude or not. Okay, Digsun. Lesso. Kongar chegadu pechalo. Tuche.
And Adisha Chukarjevas. Chidula Adisha Sendulutons. What is Mududa? Sunday Zoji, Shima Zoji waters. Sunday Dunda de Shajonje, Sishimi Dunda de la Zoji Vainan, Jundoja.
So there's a story of Lord Atisha. And Lord Atisha arrived at a temple, and there was a man circumambulating the temple. And Lord Atisha looked at him and said, "This is very good what you're doing, but you should be practicing Dharma." So then the man thought, why would Lord Atisha say this? I am circumambulating a temple. Did the Buddha not say this? And then the next time Lord Atisha arrived, the man was studying a text, and Atisha said, "This is very good, but you really should practice Dharma." So then the man was perplexed and asked Lord Atisha, "What is practicing Dharma? I'm doing these things that are Dharma, and it seems like I'm practicing." And Lord Atisha said, "Give up on this life," or throw away, sometimes translated, but give up on this life, throw away this life, and focus on the future. So this story supports that point, the point made here in the measure of the attitude.
Jiden Shema Tun Samba Jipse, Jiden Shema Tun Tuje, Send the Shajun Suna, Jiden Shema Tun Samba Jipse. Tanangasu, Send the Tuores, Shema de Shajun Javores, Kodu ne, Shema Tuje, Send the Shajun Sumaina, Samba Jeveres, Samba Jipse.
So when the measure of this attitude is whether or not this change has taken place. So when we look at the outline, we have the developing the state of mind that strives diligently for the sake of future lives. So if we have the state of mind that strives diligently for the sake of future lives, then we have this attitude of a person of small capacity. We can say that that's the measure of whether or not we have it. So that is changing the way that we have focus, changing our focus from this life to future lives. And this measure of this is whether or not that's taken place, whether or not we have the state of mind that strives diligently for the sake of future lives. Diksun.
What Jiwa Shama to be Rivala Tene, Jiwa Shama Yuba Yichine. Imagina Jiwa Shama to any Yabu
So, in order for us to really develop the state of mind that strives diligently for the sake of future lives, we have to establish by way of sign future lives. We have to establish by way of sign past lives. So this is how we can develop faith and conviction in past and future lives, is by establishing them by way of signs. So we have to develop the faith and conviction that there is a past life, develop the faith and conviction that there is a future life. And we have to establish by way of a sign that there is a past life, by way of a sign that there is a future life. Because without establishing establishing in that way, without establishing and developing faith and conviction in past and future lives, then it will be very difficult to develop the determination, the state of mind that strives diligently for the sake of future lives. So what is the sign that there is a previous life? So right now we have consciousness. So our consciousness now came from a previous consciousness. Why? Because it's consciousness. That which is not consciousness does not produce consciousness. So if we say, we can't say that the child's consciousness is the parent's consciousness, because the child's consciousness isn't the parent's consciousness. It's from the parent's consciousness, because the child's consciousness isn't the parent's consciousness.
Pami sheba the bugu sheba reba ina, Pama Sagala ina, Bugu de Sagala imba, Pama Sagala maina, Bugu Sagala maimba, Cheba Yoguba, Cheba Yomaris.
So if the parent's consciousness were that of the same as the child's consciousness, then if the parents were scholars, the child would be a scholar, and if the parents were not scholars in something, the child would not be a scholar in something, or if they were wise in something, they would be wise in it, or not smart in something, not smart in that. So we find that, though, not to be the case, that the consciousness is different.
So
if it's not the parent's consciousness, then where does it come from? It comes from previous. Why did it come from previous? Because it's consciousness, because it's awareness. It came from this previous consciousness. So all sentient beings' consciousness came from a previous consciousness, because it's consciousness.
What the sentient Joel Tomo member, Joel Tomo member is on, and the Amashimano Gio Mare, Sentient Rank Mare, Pare, Shinere said what they negate to.
Since all sentient beings have had beginningless lives, then we not only establish that all sentient beings are our mother, but we also say that they are our father, our parents, our father, our brothers, our sisters, etc., because of this beginningless nature of all sentient beings' lives that we can establish. Tiso.
What do Santan, what the sentient rank Mai, but the Joan Hamadubita, Shemadubita. That Joan Hama Yueta, and the Shene, Mabandu, Shemadia. Gebe shikami juji riba shima sanjate riba chaji jirima imejir chajis dochata shiba imejir gebe shikalami juji shiba juro te shiba shima sanjagres jo shima lugres chaji jirima imejir dochata jibi riba imejir jo shima lugta anda marbe.
so how do we establish that there are future lives? There are a future life if there at the time of death is still attachment present. If there is an attachment present, then there will be a next. So this is how we establish that there are future lives, and that we establish that all sentient beings have been our mothers because we establish all sentient beings having these previous lives. And without establishing these previous lives, it's very difficult to establish that all sentient beings are our mothers. So we have to establish by way of a sign both past and future lives in order to move forward with these other practices. Digsun.
What was sentient rang mai pinjai sisitai said what the Buddhism what the to Buddhism what the doing.
So then we can say that all sentient beings are our mother, are our siblings, are our relatives. This is how Buddhist signs work.
What the son what the double
If we think a lot about it, we should. If we're thinking a lot, it's similar. We should think in a similar way. So there is a small section in clearing away misconception, but we'll go over that in the future. And when we finish the clearing away misconceptions, we finish the small scope section. And then we go to the medium scope. So the root of the four medium scope is the Four Noble Truths. And then we'll go through it. We've gone over the medium scope with the Four Noble Truths, but we'll go over it again. Would be good.
Yeah.
Decent. So we'll do the concluding mandala.
What is done, decent?
Decent.
Okay.
Are you true at Lenjap? So Rinpoche said we can do the concluding prayers, but if anyone has a question, we can address that. So conclude a mandala offering and dedication prayer. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well, with whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the three times. I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All-powerful Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso, may stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Tuji Rinpoche Gutsi Shabi Denralang, Lamrim Chenmo Kong the True.